Good morning. This is the 14th and final day through the book of Matthew, and today is Resurrection Day, baby. Unfortunately, it's also Crucifixion Day because we read about the death of Jesus and then his glorious resurrection and then meeting his disciples on one of the mountains in Galilee, which is up north. He had traveled up there, he met them up there, and he then gives them what we now know as the Great Commission, that they are to go out into all the world and make disciples of everyone. They're to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit, and teach them to observe everything that Jesus has commanded us. So, yes, we preach the gospel, we baptize new believers, but we also teach an ethic. It's not like Christianity doesn't have any rules and boundaries and commandments that we have to follow. Yes, there's an entire ethic of the New Testament, and God does still expect us to live lives of holiness and to do the things that Jesus said, like forgive our enemies, for example, love our enemies. But nonetheless, what I want to comment on today is the powerful death of Jesus. That this man's death was not like any other death. You know, there are probably hundreds of thousands of people that die every day, that slip into eternity. And when their body dies and their soul leaves their body, nothing dramatic happens. It's just another death, completely irrelevant to the world. And it's like history just carries on. And that's what it's going to be like when I die. Nothing dramatic's going to happen when I die. Life will carry on and it'll just be another death. But when Jesus died, it was like his death was so significant, it was so powerful. Something so great was happening because of his death that there were these external manifestations. It's almost like the whole of creation began to reverberate and shake and react to the death of this man, because it was a powerful death. So let me read to you the account of this powerful death. So Jesus had been on the cross. I think he was on the cross for 6 hours. For the final 3 hours of that, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, so that's from 12 until 3 in the afternoon, there was darkness over all the land. So that's the first thing we see about this powerful death. Even the sun refused to shine. It was so abhorrent to creation itself, and to the Father turning his face away from his Son, as his Son carried the sin and filth of the world upon himself and was dying the judgment for it. Even God turned his face away, and the lights of the universe were switched off. That's not going to happen when I die. It's not so abhorrent when I die. This body of mine must die. It's a sinful body. This mortal must put off mortality so that it can put on immortality. This corrupt body must be put off so that I can put on an incorrupt body. It's good when I die. It wasn't good when Jesus died. So we see darkness over all the land. And then after he cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? They come and try to offer him some wine. And everybody else says, leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah will come and save him. Then Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they feared greatly, saying, "Truly this was the Son of God." And many women who followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, were there, looking on from afar, among whom were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. So 3 things I want to just point out at the death of Jesus that were manifestations of the power of this death. First one is that the veil of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom. This veil that was like this thick, that separated the Holy of Holies, which was that inner room of the temple where the Ark of the Covenant was, where the presence of God dwelt, that only the high priest was allowed to go in there, and only once a year, and he had to go in with blood, and he had to put incense on a fire so that there was smoke so that he couldn't see when he went in there. So holy was the presence of God that it had to be separated from the people. God could not be approached by man. Why? Because that veil, it actually protected human beings from the holy presence of God, because our sin has caused a separation between us and God. And if we were to just waltz into God's presence with our sin unforgiven, uncovered, we would be destroyed. And yet at the death of Jesus, this veil is torn in 2 from top to bottom. It's like the front of the president's house and all the security gates just getting ripped out of the ground by a tornado and thrown into the sea, and you can just walk down the road and walk straight into the president's bedroom, and no one would stop you. That's the access that now you have to God. Why? Of course, because the death of Jesus was a death for sin. He was paying the price for sin. He was taking the wrath of God upon himself so that the justice of God could be satisfied. Sin had now been punished, and God could now accept sinners because they have been covered by this blood, by this sacrifice. They can now be forgiven because their debt has been paid by someone else. It is such good news. And I hope you feel the goodness of that good news, because you too, my friend, like me, are a sinner. And you needed that. And Jesus did it for you. And so the veil of this temple was torn in 2, and we can now come freely into the presence of God. You can wake up every morning and you can just lift your eyes to heaven and say, "My Father," not just my God and my Creator, but now you can say, "My Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name." You can just come into his presence. How wonderful is that? The veil in the temple was torn at the death of Jesus, a powerful death. The second thing we see happen at the death of Jesus is that the earth itself begins to quake and the rocks are split. The creation itself begins to reverberate. And we know from the rest of Scripture that when Jesus returns after the millennium, there is going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The old earth is going to be rolled up like a scroll and thrown away, and there's going to be a new earth. And can you imagine the beauty of that new earth? We are going to live for all eternity, my friends, on a new earth. We're not going to be living in some cloud, weird dream state, some heaven, as pictured by many people. We're going to live on the earth for all eternity. but a new earth. And at the death of Jesus, the earth already begins to shake and the rocks begin to split. The old earth is almost like the scroll of the old earth is now beginning to be rolled up. Powerful death. The death of Jesus on the cross began this whole process of wrapping up the physical creation itself. What a phenomenal thought. Because your death is not going to have any impact on the physical creation. I can tell you that, except for the worms that you feed when you're buried. When Jesus died, the whole earth started to shake. And then many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And they start going into the holy city. Many bodies of the saints. So in addition to what we've said, that sin is forgiven, you can now come into God's presence. The whole of the creation is now groaning. It's ready for its recreation. But there is a community of saints that you're going to be added to, who will be raised from the dead. You are going to get a new body. And you're not going to just live in it alone in this new creation. You're going to live in it amongst a community of friends and brothers and sisters. You are going to have friendship like nothing in this world has ever given you a taste of. You're going to have family like nothing in this world has ever given you a taste of. You're going to be loved perfectly and appreciated and treated with respect and honor by every single human being in this new creation. And it's going to be a kingdom. It's not like we're going to just wander around aimlessly on this new creation. There's going to be a holy city. There's going to be an economy of sorts. It's a kingdom. A kingdom is something with authority and structure and different roles. The fullness of what God meant for the earth and the complexity of it, and the complexity of human flourishing and relationships and progress and creativity. And there's going to be things to do in heaven. It's a kingdom. That's the other thing. The third thing, that the death of Jesus ushered in a whole new kingdom and a whole new family. And I, for one, cannot wait to take my part in that. It's almost like we are like the two Marys and the mother of James and John, sitting on from afar and watching this all happen. We're still sitting afar. We don't yet see the new creation. We don't yet see this heavenly kingdom and the resurrection of our bodies. We see them from afar, as it were, and we trust in them by faith. But they are coming, my friend. And, let your heart rejoice in it. So Jesus, thank you for dying for us, and thank you that it was a powerful death, followed by a resurrection on the third day. So God bless you. I will see you tomorrow as we begin the Gospel of Mark.